Welcome to the Tower Talk podcast, a place for honest and open conversations to support you in living your best life from the inside out. Join me on this journey of self-discovery as we explore what it means to reach next level badassery and cut through the BS. So tune in, stay a while, and I promise I'll be right here alongside you as we figure this shit out together. If I could do one movement practice for the rest of my life, it would be mobility. Okay, well, maybe also strength, but they go hand in hand, like Bulgarian split squats and ass cheeks, like deadlifts and a really strong back, like lunges. Okay, I could go through all this forever, but why? Because I'm about to share with you in this episode why mobility is absolutely essential to move through life. From when you are just a little tiny tot to 100-year-olds. It determines how strong we can be, how well we can move, how resilient we are to injury and stress. It's what allows us to lift heavy, run fast, bend over to play with our dog, have sex, fall down, get back up, jump, dance, and so on, and so on, and so on. Mobility is the key to freedom with movement. It is the foundation of a healthy and happy life, especially as we age. So let's dive right into it. To start, let's define what mobility is. And according to Harvard Health, mobility is defined as your ability to move purposefully as you go throughout your day. It is quite literally the foundation for living a healthy and independent life. Mobility comprises all the skills required for everyday living: physical stamina, strength, balance, coordination, and range of motion. Oftentimes, we move through life just not realizing and appreciating how much our bodies do for us and how often they actually move. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can tell that I use my hands a lot. They'd say it's because I'm Italian, New Jersey, sassy. I just feel like it's really hard to talk with my hands down. I'm like, what am I going to do? So yeah, I move a lot. Walking up and down the stairs, carrying groceries, reaching up to a high shelf, taking out a trash. Our bodies are constantly working for us, and mobility is like greasing those gears so that they don't wear out or get stuck. So just as your car needs both gas and oil to run properly, your body needs nourishment and mobility to function properly. Now, we can't get any further without talking about the difference between mobility and flexibility. These terms are quite interchangeable when they're actually two totally different things. Mobility is the joint's ability to move through a given range of motion. So let's go for an example, our shoulder, because we'll talk about our shoulders a lot. When we have proper mobility in our shoulders, you're able to properly use your entire arm, hand, elbow, and in multiple directions. If you lack mobility in your shoulder and the joints cannot move through your full range of motion, you'll experience some restricted movement all throughout your arm and hand, and even if it's not super apparent. That is why mobility is so important, because everything in the body is connected. And so when one area is restricted, it's going to impact another. I'm sure you've been to the doctor at some point in your life and you say, oh, it's my ankle. It's definitely my ankle. And they're like, well, actually, I think it's from your hip. And you're like, what? I think it's from your opposite hip. And you're like, what? It's all connected. It all moves together. Now, flexibility is the ability to move a muscle or muscle groups to lengthen passively through a range of motion. Movements like yoga or stretching can really help with mobility by improving overall flexibility, balance, and core strength. But that is different than the mobility in our joints. You wouldn't refer to your shoulder as being flexible. It's mobile. Flexibility allows you to do a handstand or shoulder extensions without pain. But if your shoulder is not mobile enough to begin with, then you can't even really start to do those movements. So they aren't interchangeable, but they go hand in hand like peanut butter and jelly or Bulgarian split squats and cheek exercises. I don't want to throw a wrench in your plans, but there's also stability. It is the ability to maintain control of a joint movement or positioning. They're all important in your body, but all have very different distinctions. And typically the joints that need more mobility are your shoulders, your wrists, your hips, your ankles, and your T-spine. And then the joints that need more stability is your cervical spine, your lumbar spine, and your knees. So the question is, how do you add mobility in your training and into your life? And what does that actually look like and mean? Now, as I mentioned before, mobility is the natural part of moving through life. Prioritizing mobility practice can greatly improve your overall body mobility, and it is so important. So let's break it down. I personally, myself, as someone that is in the fitness industry, the gym is my life. I've been doing this for so freaking long. I love 5 to 15 minutes of structured mobility 1 to 2 times a day. So something like that can look like a little morning flow of the major joints, one time through for about 30 to 60 seconds. And all of these are in the free PDF that I'm giving out in the show notes. All you have to do is put in your email and I'll send it directly to your email. It goes through all of these drills that I'll talk about as well, but I'll talk you through them as I'm mentioning the PDF as well. So this mobility flow can look like 1 to 2 movements for each of those major joints we need to increase our mobility. So for example, I like to start from the ground up. So I like to start with my feet. So I'd start with my ankles and maybe get into some ankle leans and a passive squat. So I would sit in my deepest squats and I'd lean onto one side or the other or just hold for about 30 to 60 seconds. You can then get into your hips. One of my favorite hip exercises is a shin box switch. Some people may call it a 90-90. Again, it's in the show notes. If you don't know what it is, I'll show you exactly how to do that. But basically you want to look at 90 degrees on your front leg and 90 degrees on your back leg in a seated position. So it'll allow internal and external rotation within your hips. And you can use your hands behind you. You can put them off to the side, or you can take them and hold them up as you just rotate your knees side to side. Then I would potentially get into my T-spine. So from there, I would get into a tabletop position. Tabletop position is hands and knees on the ground. Like you're in a plank position, but your knees are on the ground. And you want your knees underneath your hips and then your wrists right underneath your shoulders. From there, I would take my hand behind my head and open up my elbow so I can get into the T-spine. T-spine is your thoracic spine. So if we're looking at our spine as a whole, from the top of your head down to your tailbone, you start with the cervical spine, then get into your thoracic spine, which is right in the middle, and then your lumbar spine. So we're trying to really open up the T-spine when we get into those T-spine openers in a tabletop position. Then I would stand up for some shoulder rotation or corkscrews. So I'd have a really solid base of foundation. My arms can come out to a T, and I would rotate my shoulder down like I'm wringing out a towel. So my palm would be facing up on one side and then down on the other and rotate back and forth. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're actually seeing me go through the actual movements. And then maybe I get in a little bit of wrist work so I can clasp my hands together and then just rotate, make little circles or figure eights with my hands together in like a prayer pose position. But if you have no idea what I'm talking about or really want to see exactly how all of these work, there is this free PDF in the show notes. So at night, so if that was my morning or midday mobility routine, at night I may add in a round of the same exercises. Maybe I do some little bit different ones or a couple others in standing. We can add in some hip and shoulder CARs. Now, a CAR is a controlled articular rotation. So you're basically trying to utilize your joints in full range of motion. I personally learned mobility training through the On It Academy years ago, and then went on to learn a lot more through FRC, which is Functional Range Conditioning platform. And I can't really go a whole podcast on mobility without mentioning what CARs and P.A.I.Ls and R.A.I.Ls are. And they all come from FRC and Kinstretch, which is a protocol that is extremely valuable on improving your mobility. If you want to learn more information on FRC and Kinstretch, I also have linked that in the show notes, so you can definitely dive a little bit deeper than what I'm getting into today. Also, I show you a hip and shoulder example of a CAR controlled articular rotation in this free PDF as well.
Sorry for interrupting this episode, but I am here to talk about our sponsor for today's episode. Let's talk about supplements. What do you guys like to use? I love Legion Athletics. Give me that vanilla whey protein in a shake, in my overnight oats. Heck, I might even just dry scoop it. That's how much I love it. The texture, the taste, the quality, it's top notch. Not only does it taste great, but they're backed by science. From their protein powders to pre-workouts, they've got the formula down. It's like they've cracked the code for better workouts and recovery. They deliver the highest quality supplements because they have a team of doctors, dietitians, nutritionists, and other clinicians making sure all the supplements go through rigorous third-party testing, so you know what you put in your body is safe. I may be biased because this is the only brand I've been using for years, but I think you should give it a shot. So if I've changed your mind and you're a little curious, head on over to legionathletics.com. Use code TerraTalk to get 20% off your next order. See what fits your vibe. No pressure from me. I'm just saying this could be the upgrade your fitness routine needs. Now back to more Tara.
Now let's talk about P.A.I.Ls and R.A.I.Ls. It's just an acronym. P.A.I.L is P-A-I-L, progressive angular isometric loading. And then a R.A.I.L is regressive angular isometric loading. Now, it's a protocol created by Dr. Andrea Spina. In other words, this is when we're stretching and contracting the muscles that are being lengthened and stretched, followed by the opposing muscles to pull us deeper into the stretch. So you're basically pushing and pulling to get deeper into your stretch. So for example, if you think about this kind of like if you're in yoga and it's a heated studio and you're in a child's pose, and all of a sudden you can get a lot deeper into your pose because of the heat. Now, we're doing this basically without heat. We're utilizing our own muscles to contract and retract so that we can get deeper in the stretch. Now, a P.A.I.L, P-A-I-L, progressive angular isometric loading, is the first contraction in the sequence in which the tension on the muscle is being loaded or stretched. And a R.A.I.L is the second contraction of an antagonist or tissue that is shortening to achieve a new range of motion. You can think of this actively as pulling yourself into a new range of motion. The active component of P.A.I.Ls and R.A.I.Ls ensures that we're achieving usable range of motion instead of just going through the movement or trying to push past the movement. Going back to that yoga example, with the heat, it allows us to get a little bit deeper in the stretch, but maybe we wouldn't have been able to actually get there ourselves. So utilizing P.A.I.Ls and R.A.I.Ls is actually utilizing our own range of motion without 110-degree heat in a yoga studio. Okay, let's go through this example with a couch stretch. Now, a couch stretch is where you are on the ground, your one foot is on the couch, that same side knee is on the ground. So let's say my right foot is on the couch, my right knee is down, and then my left foot is forward, and I'm in basically a half kneeling position, but one foot is on the couch, okay? So now I want you to just envision this or do this with me, okay? We'll do it on the right side. You're going to do 3 to 5 reps. So on rep 1, you're going to push against the box or the couch at an effort about 50% for about 10 to 20 seconds. So the left foot is just in front of the couch. And then the right foot is pushing against the couch at an effort about 50% of what you can push. Okay. Now the regressive angular isometric loading, you would then contract the opposing muscles to strengthen and activate those muscles at an end range. So I'm basically recruiting and activating my hamstrings to pull myself deeper into the stretch. And now this, after that P.A.I.L, the R.A.I.L is then done at max effort. You're basically connecting your mind and muscle to activate and squeeze as hard as you possibly can for 10 seconds, and then totally back off, breathe, take a couple of breaths. You would do another one of those P.A.I.Ls where we're pushing into the couch and then pulling back, perhaps maybe 70% this go around. And every rep you do this, you're increasing the intensity and eventually getting into pushing as hard as you can. And honestly, you can do this on so many different stretches. You can do this in that shin box switch. You can do this in that passive squat where I push my foot down and then pull it up, right? And so all of these can be, maybe you're doing only 3 to 5 reps, but with those 10 or 20 second really like pushing and then pulling back. The pullback is really done at that max effort. So practice this out on some of those mobility exercises that I have in the mobility flow or in the show notes as well. Check out that PDF. I go over all this even more in depth. So with the mobility flow or the adding in a couple times a day, I would also do mobility in every one of my workouts. So outside of doing some of those mobility drills and doing a mobility morning flow or an evening flow, I also add in mobility in all of my warm-ups for myself and my clients. And it is so important to make sure that you're fully warmed up before you get into your actual lifts. So I have drills that I will just do for squats, just do for deadlifts, just do for bench press to make sure that I'm fully ready for the movement, but also just can increase that range of motion so that I can get deeper in my squats so that I can have a bigger arch in my bench press so that I can feel more comfortable in my deadlifts. Also within that PDF, I have the 3 warm-ups that I rotate just through with my total body, upper body, or lower body workouts. So you can just follow along and do those with me as well. So if all of that sounds super overwhelming and you're like, Tara, you just gave me so many different ways to do mobility. How do you want me to do it? Pick 3 or 4 of them and do them just 2 times a week for maybe 2 or 3 minutes. That is more than most people are doing. And that is more than probably a lot of you are doing right now. So start small. And I guarantee that as you feel the difference in your body, you'll want to do more and more. And if you're at least adding it within your workouts, I think that's a really great start. But maybe adding it 1 or 2 times a week at night or in the morning for you to like wake up or wind down. It is so cool to see the progress, even just a couple times a week. So again, those types of mobility to add in your daily life, your morning or evening flow, again, in the show notes, if you want to follow along with that. Throughout the day, those hip and shoulder cars, those controlled articular rotations, even just doing a standing child's pose. Like if I was at my desk right now, I could put my hands on the desk, send my butt back, and I would find maybe a cat cow in a standing child's pose, or maybe adding some twists in my seat. Another really great way to add it throughout the day. And then also making sure that you're doing that dynamic warm up and adding mobility into your workouts. And then how do we add it into our training? You can add it before and after. Maybe just pick a couple of them to start. For example, if I'm going to do squats, I'm definitely going to warm up my ankles. That's really important. And I'm going to get in my hips. So that chin box switch, we can do the world's greatest stretch or a runner's lunge with a reach. We can do a Cossack squat. We can do those hip cars. If I'm going to do bench press, I might do some shoulder movements. I might do some T-spine to really open up my chest before it. And then also adding in some of that other like dynamic stretching and moving before you actually get into your workout itself. Also, following a program that has all of that built in is so valuable, and it takes the guesswork out of everything. All of my clients get mobility within their programs. It's also an integral part of my monthly program, the P.A.I.L method. And really, the less you have to think about it, the easier it is to do every day. So find what works best for you and stick with it. Just like everything I say on this podcast and all over my social media channels, the more consistent you are with something, the better it will be. But I know that it can be overwhelming to add in so many different aspects of your life. But again, start small to keep it sustainable. Okay. You don't have to do it all at once, but maybe you're like, all right, Tara, I really want to improve my squat mobility. I really want my ankles to feel better. Cool. Pick 2 movements, do them a couple times a week, and that will feel so much better. And then you'll be like, oh, my ankles feel great. Let me work on my hips next. And then you can add in 1 to 2 movements there. Again, slow and steady. Take the choice factor out by simply doing it every morning, every evening, 1 of those, and then maybe in your warm up itself or with every workout. But now you know why I love mobility so much and understand why it's so important. I am going to challenge you to add mobility flow into your daily routine. So please make sure you download the free mobility guide in the show notes. And I'm going to support you along this. So make sure you tag me, the Tara Talk, and at Tara La Ferrera, and I will definitely reshare and I will give you some tips and keep you accountable with it. Between this episode and the free guide, there's really no excuse to work on your mobility. Go download it in the show notes. And then a few things to consider as you create your mobility plan, like what time of the day feels most consistent with your schedule. Is it in the morning before work? Maybe as a midday break before or after lunch? Maybe it's in the evening right before you go to bed. What areas of your body may need more attention as you begin your mobility routine? Typically, I have people start on their hips and shoulders. So many of us sit on a computer or sit on our phones all day and our shoulders get more rounded and rounded. So maybe you have some tightness in your upper back, hips, feet, shoulders. And then how do you plan to add mobility in your workouts? Is it best to start with or end with it? Where are you exactly when you do this? Are you at your gym or are you at home when you do your movements? So the more focused you can be on where you're doing it and what time you're doing it, the more consistent you'll be. And if you're looking for a movement program or coach to support you in not only movement, but mindset too, I've got you covered. Join the P.A.I.L method for a free week and receive workouts geared towards strengthening and connecting deeper with your body or you can always apply one-on-one with me and receive even more support on your movement, mindset, and food journey. Now, go oil up those joints. Thanks for coming to this Tara Talk. I hope you're taking something away from this episode, and if so, I would love to hear about it. You can connect with me at The Tara Talk and at Tara LaFerrara on Instagram. A few ways you can help support the show and help spread the word. You can share it on Instagram, tag at The Tara Talk and at Tara LaFerrara. Send an episode to a friend, and please leave a review if the show is resonating with you. It takes just a few minutes, and it means so much to help this show grow, and it helps me to continue to bring on badass guests for all of us to learn and grow from. I am so happy you're here and excited to be on this journey with you. Until next time, be a badass with a good ass.